Space is dark. Only the faint light of your cockpit equipment lights up the void in front of you, the light buzz of your comms channel filling the noiseless vacuum. Suddenly, space splits in front of you. The rebels have dropped out of hyperspace. You and your squadron burst into action, coordinating your attack as you have done so many times before. A well-oiled machine in service of the Galactic Empire. Games often claim they are immersive. From supposedly mind-blowing physics to VR, there are 1,000,001 ways that developers try to make players feel a part of the game world. Rarely, however, are they successful. Immersion is more than just some snazzy effects and the ability to strap a headset with a couple of screens on. It's more about the entire design of the game itself. It's the sounds, the point of view. A true mark of a properly immersive game is whether it's immersive when I'm not wearing a VR headset. Star Wars Squadrons is a masterclass in immersive video game design. From the one available cockpit view to the mind-blowing sound effects and atmosphere. Immersion is not the be-all and end-all of video game quality, however, and thankfully for Star Wars Squadrons there's a lot more than its ability to suck you in to say that it's a quality title. Squadrons turns out to be a bit of an oddity in modern game design. It's streamlined, but equally doesn't pull any punches when it comes to welcoming newcomers. Sure enough, you can pick the game up and jump into the first story mission to learn the controls and how each ship handles, but it takes a lot more time to learn the intricacies of gameplay. It's refreshing to play a game in 2020 that doesn't hold your hand the whole way through, and creates a far more rewarding experience than other games. It helps that while seemingly complicated, the controls are intuitive and highly customizable. Don't like the orientation of the yaw? No worries, just jump into the menu and switch it over to your preferred setting. It's touches like this easy customizability and the lack of hand-holding that makes Squadrons feel so different over other Star Wars games. Controlling your ship is both wonderfully detailed, whilst also being intuitive and simple. Flying your ship around with the sticks soon becomes second nature, and the weapon controls feel instantly recognisable. There's something beautifully visceral about how direct it all feels. They're responsive and quick. One of the best aspects to me are the different ship systems you can control at the push of a button. Crying, "All shields forwards!" or "Full power to engines" never gets old. Not only does it feel different to other Star Wars titles, it looks very different too. There is a certain way that Star Wars games have to look in 2020. Star Wars has had over 40 years to hone its aesthetic, and while there are the odd deviations, there is definitely a distinct visual style that tells you you're watching part of the biggest franchise on Earth. We've seen it truly come to life in video games over the last few years, from Star Wars Battlefront 2 to Star Wars Jedi: The Fallen Order. You could hardly call it colourless, but Star Wars has cultivated itself a weirdly monochromatic theme that saturates other entries in the franchise. The Empire is grey and black, rarely deviating from its industrialist colour scheme in its vehicles or staff, and the Rebellion is grey and white, occasionally refreshing things with some orange. Squadron somewhat escapes from this colour bible, from the crazy decorations you can slap on your fighters and the costumes you can dress your pilots in, to the gorgeous sectors of space that you fly through. It's these sectors that truly set the game apart in the pantheon of Star Wars media. From old battlefields filled with starship wrecks to spatial phenomena that threaten to rend you and your ship into tiny spacebound particles. Each map is colourful, different, and gorgeous to look at. And the fact that you gaze at these locations through the cockpit glass of some of Star Wars' most evocative ships adds to the atmosphere. There is some incredible attention to detail in these cockpits as well. Status screens gently flicker, shield displays glow, and targeting computers ping and rattle. It's one thing to put you in the control of a starfighter. It's a very different story when you'll feel like you're actually in the cockpit. All this would be for naught, however, if the gameplay loop didn't hold up. Thankfully, they've nailed that too. On the surface, it appears simple, but upon closer inspection, you realise there is a nuance and a depth that's rarely seen in a game that costs half the price of a normal release. At its core, this is a squad-based shooter. Ship archetypes fill a certain role, and it's important that a team is balanced to take the win, making managing your squadron of 6 pilots extremely important. You can't have too many TIE interceptors, they get torn apart by heavier weaponry, but neither can you have a squadron full of bombers. You'll be sitting ducks for faster craft. Players seem to realise this as well. I've rarely been in a game where the squadron doesn't fill the roles needed, and players seem to take turns in flying different ships. Even within the different fighter archetypes, each ship feels very different. The Imperial TIE Interceptor is the fastest ship, but it lacks shields and isn't as manoeuvrable as the New Republic's A-Wing. It's a marvel how they've managed it. Each ship's cockpit looks different, with different creaks and moans as you careen through junkyards and asteroid fields. You can even customise your cockpit with small trinkets you can hang from the bulkheads and paint jobs you can slap on the fighter, setting you apart from the competition. Unlocking these uncommonly contains no microtransactions. All of the required points can be gained through gameplay. In order to gain these points, you're going to want to jump into the multiplayer options of the game, of which there are only 2. Dogfight mode makes you feel the space fighter ace you always thought you were, as you zip through various maps and blast opposing starfighters into space dust, while fleet battles let you and your squadron bring the fight to the mighty capital ships. Obviously, the meat of the multiplayer experience lies in the far deeper fleet battles mode, as you and your squadron set out on a war of attrition, balancing keeping morale high enough to damage the enemy's capital ship, whilst making sure that your own capital ship is defended from the opposing squadron. It's fun, rewarding when you win, and while a loss is devastating, it's got that just one more game factor that's so important in multiplayer games. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for the story. Mission structure is excellent, but the story isn't really strong enough to keep you engaged. You play as 2 pilots, one an ace Imperial pilot, and the other a rookie New Republic fighter. It's your typical Star Wars superweapon mumbo-jumbo. One side trying to protect their war-ending superweapon, the other trying to destroy it. Interestingly, the Imperials have the more compelling side of the story, with characters that have more nuanced motivations and a more interesting commanding officer. Perhaps I'm biased because I adore hearing the scream of a twin ion engine, but I was always disappointed when I had to jump back to the New Republic. Really though, this is just one more mode that feels like it's there to tick a box. Voice acting is anywhere from good to rubbish, and the ending is possibly the most wishy-washy nonsense I've ever seen. The biggest problem with Squadrons is simple. That's all there is. There's 2 multiplayer modes, 1 story mode, and 8 different ships. While I understand that I haven't paid full price for the game, it does smart a little that it feels so light on content. I play it a fair bit now, but I can see myself getting a little bored with it in the future. Often I find myself playing in the same map 3 times in a row as the same faction. Something about that just doesn't sit right with me, especially when we're told that this is it. We may get small updates with some new cosmetic options, but there won't be any new meaty content packs or incremental updates with new maps. The ships I can understand, these are carefully balanced, and adding another archetype could throw the balance into disarray, but some extra maps would be welcome. I mean, what keeps you coming back in the long run? I'll hazard a guess and say probably not new cosmetic items. Star Wars Squadrons is good, especially at its lower price point. It plays fantastically and does the best job I've ever seen of making you feel like you're in the cockpit of an iconic starfighter. Gameplay is deep and rewarding, and the modes that are present are fun and engaging, but there's just not enough of it. Buy it, play it, you will absolutely love it, but you probably won't be playing it in a few months' time. Anyway, I've been Matt, and this has been a game review at the Den. If you're interested in more videos like this one, please subscribe. Expect reviews and shows from all corners of the world of video games. Stay tuned for next week's episode of Playing by Series, and in the meantime, stay safe.